Hello friend and welcome to Borgcast Lower Decks 3.9 with Peter and Anne-Marie.
Hello!
We have some...
Previously on Star Trek Lower Decks.
Well, this is a thing. I'd kind of forgotten we were on YouTube. And then I just happened to be looking at something for what we're covering after Lower Decks. And lo and behold, I saw we had some feedback on it. Thankfully, only 4 days old, so we haven't missed the window with this one.
Cool.
So hello to Wendy Heatherwood. It's good to hear from you. She has this to say about Episode 5 Reflections.
The Delta Flyer uniform is from the episode where Tom entered it into an interplanetary racing competition representing the Federation. I don't remember if it was ever spelled out in the episode, but I'd guess it's an official Team Starfleet outfit.
Yeah, and I do vaguely remember that now, so thank you for that reminder. And it was, yeah, I suppose the idea was kind of like, it was like, you know, Formula One racing driver type outfits. But to be honest, it would have been better going with sort of Deep Space Nine type overalls if that was the idea. But anyway, yes, that's true. We have seen those before.
And then on episode 7, A Mathematically Perfect Redemption, Wendy says the title is both a reference to the fact that Peanut Hamper told Tendi she'd picked the name because it was mathematically perfect, but also a clue to the fact she'd calculated the whole situation to make her look good.
Ah, and failed. So thanks. Good to hear from you.
Thank you.
And we're covering Trusted Sources tonight, the 9th episode.
The first Project Swing-By planet you'll be checking in on is Ornara.
Ornara. Picard made first contact there, right?
Yes, 17 years ago. So they're long overdue for some Starfleet attention. If this goes well, Swing-By missions will be assigned across the entire California class.
Then I'll make sure it goes better than well.
I know you will, which is why I have a journalist from FNN en route to the Cerritos. She'll be documenting your success as it happens. Buen amigo out.
So you start with the captain's log, and she's talking about second contact and the importance of planetary follow-up. And then you are in the conference room?
Yeah, I think so.
And they've got Admiral Buen Amigo on the big screen, zooming in, as it were, saying that Project Swing-By has been given approval, which is great, except that they're now going to bring along a journalist documenting everything. And she's like, oh no, and they're all like, what is it? She's like, no, a journalist can't see this ship, and we've got to clean it up. And they all start laughing, and then like, oh shit, she's serious. And that's your teaser. And after the teaser, they're talking about the Anarans and the Breccians from Next Gen. And what was the episode?
Symbiosis.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, the first season. Not a great one, but not as bad as some in the first season anyway.
And then they're talking about how Picard's solution, because the Anarans were drug addicts and the Breccians were the suppliers, was to sever the communications between the two and just leave. And Rance was like, what, you just left? And he's looking like for more information, like, yep.
Yep, just left them to go cold turkey.
Yeah. And we've now got to check in on them.
60 minutes was up.
Yep. Meanwhile, the lower deckers are having the annual pie eating contest. And this
Pie.
Yeah, but it's all fruit pie because it's America.
Yeah, they're weird, aren't they? I mean, fruit pie's all right, but, you're going to have a pie. You want a few chunks of meat in it. Give it some body.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's like even mince pies used to be like mince as in minced beef.
Yeah. Proper pies have got meat in them.
Yeah. And so then the captain's like, oh no, we can't have this. We've got to change some crew rotations. So basically, she's treating this like Ofsted and making sure that all the naughty kids are absent that day.
Yes.
Meanwhile, the journalist appears with a camera hovering by her, just like And Now for a Word in Babylon 5.
It is very And Now for a Word. That is one of the downsides of this episode. It is somewhat cliched, it has to be said.
And there's nobody headbutting the camera like the near.
And did you catch the name of the news reporter?
No, I didn't.
Victoria News.
Really?
Or News-A, N-U-Z-E with a... Yeah, it's hardly the most subtle of names, is it?
No.
She's voiced by Alison Becker, who apparently played a recurring reporter in Parks and Recreation. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, the pie eating contest has now been cancelled. Rutherford can't cope at all.
No,
he actually rips his shirt
out.
Kirk style, which I love. But he's like, I've been starving myself, and I like what Boimler says. It's the biggest crew night, not including the Pon Farrs, which I like as a as a reference. And it's like, there's plenty of other ways, plenty of other things to do that don't end in sugary diarrhea. It's just like, oh. So then there's an approved list of interviewees. You get to see brief snippets of interviews, including cetacean ops, where they talk about how they've got a lifetime supply of fish, which I like. Oh, and Ransom creeps the journalist out. Rightly
slimy
so.
all over. Yeah.
But I think, isn't that a reference to Riker? That's what Riker would have been like.
And Ransom's always been like this, so yeah.
Yeah. And Mariner's like, no, I'm going to go and tell them the truth. And then meanwhile, as they're preparing to go on the planet, they're worried that things might have got bad when Picard left. So they land and they're all friendly and they said, we made a mural about, look, there's the Enterprise leaving. That's us all having withdrawal symptoms and freaking out. Yeah. And then we got better and now we're just addicted to fitness. So it's got Ransom's like, how many benches can you do and whatever. But it doesn't work. They don't actually need their help. It's like maybe there's another planet that does, maybe they've... and I didn't catch the name of the planet, but, no, we're coming to that, has fallen for Landru again.
Oh, yes, can't remember the name of the planet either now, but yes.
Yeah, so he said they're going to the pusher planet, Brecker, which makes sense, it's logical, because both of them would have been affected. And then, meanwhile, Mariner goes and talks to the reporter, and then you find out that in the crew interviews, the Cerritos has been described as chaotic, irresponsible, silly.
Yes. Did you think silly may have been a bit of a dig at the criticism of Lower Decks?
Yeah.
For being silly when it started.
I think so. Yeah. And the reporter's sort of talking to the captain, saying, your first officer turned into a giant head. You took the engineers to a spa planet. Your security chief was turned into a puppet. And just talks about all the stuff that's happened. And she just looks, really, really shocked and decides that clearly it must be Mariner who was at fault.
Captain transfers her to the dreaded Starbase 80 that's been mentioned a few times this season. And it just occurred to me as I was typing up my notes, is it called Starbase 80 because 80 is the screaming face emoji, effectively?
Is it?
Yeah, if you look, ah!
Oh!
Did wonder. Her mom having turned her back on her, we find Jen has as well, which is very sad.
Yeah, very.
At least the Lower Decks buddies are standing by her, though.
Yeah.
She's met in the shuttle bay by two grimy Starbase 80 personnel and is given an equally grimy yellow uniform with a sandwich inside.
Oh, that's disgusting.
The shot's the right state as well. At Brecker, Maglimo is given the con for the first time. I hope he's taken the command exam. His first act is to contact his mum, which is kind of sweet.
She's knitting.
Yeah. Turns out Brecker has been invaded by the Breen, though. Great to have them back, and they're clearly more of a serious threat than we've had... Well, pretty much ever, I think, in this series. Compared to the Drumani or whatever. And, yeah. They've been back to the ship and are pursued by Breen ships. They're a good match for what we saw in Deep Space Nine.
I like that design.
It's odd, but...
But it's different, though.
It is different, yeah. I mean, the fact that it's not...
It's asymmetrical, isn't it? Why does it need to be symmetrical? It doesn't need to be streamlined in the vacuum of space.
No. It's not the streamlinedness. It just looks aesthetically unpleasing as a result, but that's obviously, the Breen have no taste.
I quite like it.
All right. They get zapped by the energy drain weapon, but somehow survive it. Maybe Federation tech has advanced.
You would hope so, to be honest.
Yeah. They look surrounded, but are rescued by an automated Federation ship, the USS Alido, a Texas-class Buena Amigo's new project. It's a bit crap that Starfleet has started just naming ships after US states. It makes it out to be very United States-centric, let alone human-centric, which so often it seems. Never mind. I think we might be starting to get a bit jealous of these, all these United States getting ship classes named after them. I think we should have some British ones. So I'm proposing the USS Skegness, a Lincolnshire-class ship. We've got the Buckinghamshire-class USS Milton Keynes.
Right.
Yeah, it just looks like a giant roundabout. Or the Cumbria-class USS Barrow-in-Furness.
I propose the Essex-class USS Fingering Hoe.
Is that a place?
Yes, it is.
Wow, it sounds like something from the Thundercats. But anyway, but the design itself is quite nice. I like it and sort of kind of makes sense for it's a sort of Defiant-like, really, isn't it? Which you'd expect for a ship that hasn't got much of the computer on board.
But why haven't they learnt from Phenomena? Is that because it got classified?
Phenomena.
Discovery with Control.
Yeah.
Did that all get classified so they weren't able to learn from it?
Yeah, but apparently Starfleet, and no spoilers for Picard Season 3, but Starfleet apparently completely unable to learn the lesson that automating your ships is not a good idea. But anyway. It's just like, this is our modern fear with AI, so it's just been written into Star Trek in a big way. It's like, no, they'd have solved that problem by then. It's just stupid.
Also, the problem with AI as it stands is that it's plagiarism software, not that it's something that's going to take over the world.
There's new developments with Google I was reading today.
Oh.
Yeah, apparently a whole load of their stuff's now being done by AI. There's a new film coming out, directed by dude that did Rogue One, Gareth Edwards. It's called The Creator.
Is he the Gareth Edwards that did that film we didn't like? Monster or Monsters?
Could have been him.
I mean, we like Rogue One. Rogue One's brilliant.
Yeah, he did Monsters as well, which the effects were very good, but yeah, didn't impress. But I really like Rogue One. And
Rogue One's really good.
And this film looks really cool.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Again, sort of AI society taking over and them having to deal with the consequences.
And aren't they doing some kind of AI thing, space thing, where satellites are going to be controlled by AI?
I don't know. I think everything's going to be controlled by AI in the future. Again, then it'll go horribly wrong, and then by the time you get to Starfleet, one would hope that things will be better again. But never mind.
Yeah.
The news report reveals that Mariner wasn't behind the embarrassing stories, but they came from all the other crew instead, and she was actually full of praise. News turns on the captain as being responsible, and she tries hailing Starbase 80, but they're initially too busy dealing with a bat, finally revealing that Mariner has resigned her commission.
Which, I mean, you can't blame her.
Yeah. Turns out she's joined archaeologist Petra Aberdeen in her Indiana Jones-style adventures.
Yeah.
And I quite like that. Now, there's a ship that isn't symmetrical, but actually is quite cool. I like that design. And it makes sort of sense as a small archaeologist-type ship.
I don't remember what it looks like.
Just don't pay attention to the important parts of these things, do you? Anyway. The news report plot is all very Babylon 5, as we've said, and very hackneyed now. It's nice the way it ties into some of the threads the season has set up, though.
Yeah.
The fact that you care for the characters means it packs an emotional punch when Mariner leaves.
Yeah.
But I'm glad they didn't end the season with this, because you won't want to end on a downer.
No.
Reference to the last episode. And also, that it has to be said, there's insufficient laughter, I think, in this one. It's more of a sort of seriously driven plot rather than a fun adventure, which is kind of what I watched Lower Decks for.
Yeah, this is okay for one.
Yeah, you
and I
wouldn't
don't
want the whole season of this, would you?
No, I wouldn't, and I do hope this isn't the future direction.
I don't think so.
And if it isn't, that's fine. So this episode is fine. I don't think it's a good episode, but I don't think it's a bad episode. It's fine, is what I would say.
Yeah.
And also, I would say as well that now, 3 seasons in, we care about Mariner. If this had been the plot earlier on, we wouldn't have done.
Yes, indeed. Yeah. Now we've got she has our sympathies, whereas before she was actually annoying and undermining everybody. Whereas
for this season, she Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
All right, so let's find out what other people thought. We heard from Llama God.
Oh my God, Scott, the Fickasy Tree, Coig, Shearjake. What have I become my sweetest friend? Everyone I know goes away in the end. Now, this is an annoyingly painful episode, and I mean that in a good way. This is actually really great and a testament to Lower Decks and what it has become, because the work that they've done with Mariner up to this point and then in this episode really pays off. She's a character I wouldn't have thought I would have cared this much about when the series started, because she was just rash and annoying and a know-it-all and everything that we all hated about these central I'm the best at everything characters, and yet here she is. We end this episode and I at least am feeling really, really sorry for her. And it's a beautifully done episode, because it's a standard hijinks episode where the inspector, the chief, whatever, is coming to visit the station, coming aboard the ship, and everything needs to look spick and span, and it's your typical plot really, and with Freeman trying to hide what she thinks are the worst possible elements of the ship, which does lead to some great moments, especially the bit where she demands the ship needs to be cleaned right at the start and everyone thinks she's joking. Oh shit, she's serious. Loved all of that, just how absolutely obsessed about it Freeman becomes. And obviously through the episode you're there with the command crew as well. You know the Mariner's going to say something that's going to put the ship into a bad light, and then we find out at the end, after Mariner has been blamed for all the bad word and mouth that the suitors have been getting, you find out that Mariner is the only person who was actually saying anything good about it. I mean, that was just a wonderfully beautiful moment, a brilliant turnaround, and yeah, all credit to the writing staff for doing that. So yeah, I was completely taken by surprise the first time I saw that, and yeah, it's still really affecting now. The plot itself is also, it's a great classic trope, but well done here with the reporter coming on board, especially very much in mind of that reporter from that Babylon 5 episode, or a couple of Babylon 5 episodes, but I think pretty much every episode of a sci-fi thing that has a reporter coming on board is going to be held up to that standard. And yeah, it's just great seeing the crew's responses, trying to make it look like they're actually quite normal when they're really not. And what I love the most about the whole thing is that we get to see what any Star Trek ship or crew looks like from the outside, which is they are completely fucking out of control, and they are clearly a danger to themselves and others, because whilst we're used to seeing these kind of adventures and going along with them, it's much the same in the original series and Next Generation as well. But yeah, for all these things, all this bad luck to happen to one ship, yeah, you're going to start to think that something's going very, very wrong, wouldn't you? And I love that they point that out, exactly how weird that looks to an outsider. I love they do the follow-up mission to Anara and Wrecker and find out that, yeah, Picard walks in and then buggered off, and eventually they figured themselves out. But yeah, the meal showing how everyone went a bit crazy, yeah, I love all of that. It just really highlights how weird the whole Next Generation and General Federation mission is from time to time, and exactly why we need these projects swing by, which actually, weirdly enough, this is the thing that makes the most sense about Lower Decks, where this is supposed to be the comedy silly series, and yet some of what they're doing in Lower Decks actually makes more sense than what they do in the main serious series like Next Generation. So yeah, very odd little turnaround, but definitely not unwelcome. And there's certainly a moment that I can really empathise with, and I expect Peter can too, when the crew finds out that the pie eating contest has been cancelled and Rutherford rends his shirt in desperation. If you're gonna have to stun me, yeah, I feel that pain. I do not like being denied my pie. Pie. So yeah, a great episode this. Nice little cliffhanger with Mariner having left the crew. Will she come back? Who knows? And let's see if it gets resolved by the end of the season. So, as I'm looking forward to finding out what everyone else made about this episode. I hope everyone's not in the slightest bit terrified. And until next time, glory to you, Unicast!
Slightest bit terrified of what? This is the weekly what's Llama referring to bit now.
The whole AI thing, maybe.
Oh, maybe.
And
I mean, let's face it, there's plenty else to be terrified about in the world.
Yeah. But we can add it to the list, I suppose. And yeah, he's agreeing with us that we now are bothered, aren't we, about the Mariner's being accused.
As I said, painful.
Yeah. It's because she's accused of doing a
kiss and tell, money talk, it never lies. Kiss and tell, give and take, eye for an eye.
Brian Ferry?
Yeah. Not his best, it has to be said.
No.
But it's always very hard to get tunes for these Lower Decks ones.
It is, isn't it?
Really obscure as a result.
Yeah,
so.
Kiss and Tell was the only thing I could think of, because that's, although she didn't do it,
yeah,
she's accused.
Everybody else effectively did the Kiss and Tell. Yeah. Or we just end with the news round thing. But anyway, that's another.
We've already had it though, haven't we?
Well, no, never to play out to, although to be honest, it's not great for that.
Actually, tell you what we should play out to if we possibly can, if we can find it. That's Bill Bailey's rendition of the BBC News thing.
Yes. That is pretty awesome.
I love that.
But probably not long enough. Anyway, and follow-up missions make so much sense. I mean, it's ironic that this comedic series actually, in some ways, takes the format more seriously than
that's
Next Generation did.
That's very Shakespearean, is the fool speaks wisdom.
Oh, right. There we are. Well, pity the fool. Anyway.
Who else have we heard from?
Well, can you guess?
Barry
the Pie Man. I suspect he may have a word or two to say about the pie eating competition as well.
Yes.
Hello, Args. Barry here to talk about trusted sources. For me personally, barbecue sauce you can't go wrong with, and Pyrenees is actually a very reliable all-rounder. But that horrible dad joke aside, this is obviously the Lower Decks episode. In this one, the basic plot is that they are finally doing the swing back. What we actually thought, did we think season 3? If we did, I can't remember if it was end of season 2 or season 3 that was. Yeah, I think it was end of season 2 that we thought they were going to be setting up this thing, and it was going to be actually the setup for the rest of the series. But it turned out not to be. It was, and it's not until now. And I quite like the idea that yes, it's taken that long for Starfleet to finally approve the idea of revisiting missions. And her reaction to the outcome of Symbiosis is mine from watching the episode. I always assumed there was a follow-up ship following the Enterprise to clean up its mess, because it's Symbiosis. Picard just says, "You're all horrible and I'm leaving now." and naffs off. And you always imagine like the poor hoods trailing along going, right. But of course we now know that's the Cali class's job to do these second contact missions. And I did like the follow-up on the planet where everyone was a drug addict and they've all now got into fitness, the mural with the dark times and that sort of thing. But yes, the idea that they went there, it was good. Now, obviously, you've got a reporter with them. This is the other half of the episode that Freeman is trying to keep Mariner away from this reporter because she thinks she's going to make the ship look bad. Again, this aspect of Freeman we've seen before, that she can be quite controlling, particularly when the ship looks bad. And yes, they eventually, we get some lovely spaceship action here. We get the Cerritos in a fight. We get the new Texas class. We get some Marine ships. So, yeah, overall, that stuff's quite good. And yes, they get ambushed on the other planet, which had the pushers. It was when they were trying to follow up. And, all that kind of ties nicely together. Again, I did know the outcome of the episode this time round. I think it plays up enough of the feasibility that Mariner would tell, not maliciously, stories about all the wacky things that the Cerritos has got up to, but that she would tell them as fun stories of fun times aboard, these sort of lesser ships of the Federation, and of course it would make the ship look bad. That's what Freeman fears, and they very much set it up with that's what's happened, because obviously you also got Mariner getting more and more annoyed that she's A, being kept away from the reporter, but B, things like the pie eating contest, which quite rightly, I'd be furious with the pie eating contest. I mean, that was quite a nice Rutherford bit where he's like, please, my body needs crust, and the security guy's going, don't make me stun you. Just, again, that's the daft stuff that the series does so well. And of course, as it pans out, Mariner was in fact perfectly nice about the Cerritos and actually said some really nice things. It doesn't quite fit, because she does initially have that, hey, do you want to hear the truth about the episode? So they do they play the bluff on you on that one, rather than sort of making it a bit more organic. But it works. And in fact, yes, it's all the rest of the crew saying daft things. But again, possibly you could expect that Freeman didn't quite explain. She just said, "Oh, Mariner said stuff that made us look bad," whereas actually, of course, it was the whole crew who said stuff. Because yes, it makes the crew look kind of awful if they knew fine well that, if Shax knew that he was the one who told the story about Quark. He says, yeah, she told the thing about Quark, and Shax's like, oh, that was me, but I'll keep quiet now because she's off on one. So you've got to kind of fill in some gaps there. But yeah, it's basically a setup for the second part. It's an enjoyable setup, because at the end, obviously, I loved Starbase 80. They've been setting this up as a threat all season, and it was quite nice to actually see it. They had the crappy old shuttle from TNG. They've got sort of horrible yellow uniforms, and the thing's got a bat in it, and everyone's kind of dim. And of course, she quickly quits that to go with the archaeologist, which you kind of thought was going to happen. Again, it's following up that thread, which was kind of hanging. So yeah, overall, I think it's the setup, and I think it does need the second part to properly set it off. I think once you've got this as a two-part, it does really work. But I want to talk about that, because that's what we'll be doing next time. So all that remains for me to say is do keep up the good work. I always look forward to the podcast, and I'll hopefully feedback on the next one. But until then, bye for now.
Bye. Yeah, you were right. He would be very cross at the cancellation of pie eating contest. And interesting, Purry always assumed that there was a follow-up.
Yeah, well, back when the series started, I think the first episode we had a second contact mission. They've always been doing those.
But nobody did with that one.
Yeah, I think this was... The Project Swing By, I think, is more about missions that have got kind of forgotten.
Okay.
So, like, you have a first... Whereas you have a first contact mission, then shortly afterwards you have a second contact led by a Cali class. But this is like where there was a initial first contact, but nothing was done for ages because it was all rather embarrassing. And this is them sort of following up cold cases, effectively.
Okay, but then... Did you, when you were watching Next Gen originally, not assume that not the flagship, but Starfleet in some shape or form went and talked to them or something?
The thing is, you could insert that assumption, but there's nothing on screen to give you any idea that that's happening.
And I suppose you could argue that their thinking is that the Prime Directive prevents them doing anything else, even though they've already interfered.
Not necessarily, no. They shouldn't be interfering in the first place if there's Prime Directive
So maybe it's that if they reached out and said to the Federation, can we have some help, it wouldn't be the flagship that went, but they would offer the help because they're the Federation. But the impetus has to come from the...
I mean, the Enterprise was doing exploratory stuff.
Yeah.
as opposed to follow-up building, on things that have been discovered type stuff. So again, you kind of hope that would happen, but because Next Generation was only ever following the Enterprise, we never found out if that was indeed happening or not. So you just have to sort of hope it is, really. And in the case of Symbiosis, apparently not.
No.
Despite the fact that Picard theoretically did leave them in rather the lurch, but there we are. That's your problem with 1 hour long TV stories that aren't focused. The focus is always on the regular crew and never on the planet they're going to.
I'm not talking specifically about this episode, but I think more generally, I had always assumed that we were following the flagship, and so less important ships, like maybe science ships, or maybe
more mission-specific things. But again, the Enterprise was about exploring, which is one thing, discovering stuff, and then you bring in more specialist ships.
So I kind of assumed that there would be some kind of follow-up.
You can do, but you
don't see it.
Yeah.
But I was inferring it from the fact that sometimes later on in Next Gen, the Enterprise was called because there was a science ship that had been doing a mission of some description, and then something went wrong, and then the Enterprise was needed. So it shows you that there's other ships in Starfleet doing secondary tasks, if that makes sense.
Well, not about secondary, but different tasks.
Different, yeah. So I'm not sure that I assumed there was automatically follow-up in this specific mission, but I think that, like Puri, I assumed follow-up was a thing before we heard about the Cali class.
Right. Okay.
Does that make any kind of sense?
Vaguely.
And I think Puri's right that this does need the second part.
Yes.
I think that generally, though, about most two-parters, that you can't judge them until you've watched both bits.
And unlike the Next Generation and to a lesser extent Deep Space Nine two-parters, a lot more happens. I always found that in those two-parters, nothing much ever happened in the first part because they were building up to a big reveal.
It was like 1/3, 2/3, wasn't it?
Exactly, yeah, at most. Whereas there's plenty that happens in this story, thankfully. So, it has much more impact as a result.
I think DS9 got better at two-parters.
Yeah, to an extent.
Compared to Next Gen.
Yeah. They kind of went beyond that, though, didn't they? And started sort of spreading stories over loads of different episodes. So that worked a lot better then. Right. Okay. So we've got one more episode of Lower Decks to cover.
Which is part 2 of this. Is it called Trusted Sources Part 2? Has it got a different
it's called
name?
The Stars at Night.
Oh.
So expect Patrick... What's his face?
Oh, dead guy.
What was the name? Patrick...
He was misogynistic and played the xylophone.
Yes, that guy. Patrick Moore. God,
That's it.
dear, how quickly we forget.
Or is it Femi Badenoki? I'm probably pronouncing that
Oh,
name
yes,
wrong.
the world's most enthusiastic television presenter. Yeah, she's amazing, isn't she?
Or is it Kimmy? Oh, God, what's her name now? She's really good, and I can't remember her name.
Quick, Google.
As long as we don't play out on that episode of fucking Simply Red.
Why would we play out? Right, no, the chances of us ever playing out on Simply Red were not high, but
No,
not.
It's Maggie Aderin Pocock.
Right, I'll take your word for it.
Apparently.
She's really smiley and nice, but yeah.
Yeah,
and
she's been
greater
on
contrast
QI.
from Patrick Moore you cannot imagine.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's right. That's what I've seen her.
But she's been on. But I've seen her actually presenting some of the Sky at Night episodes. I don't watch it all the time, but I've watched the odd one or two, and she's just really enthusiastic and makes you interested in science.
Anyway, going back to the point.
Sorry.
We're covering that on Thursday, the 1st of June. Next week, we're covering on Tuesday, the 23rd, covering the classic, and I think it's fair to say classic original series episode, Mirror Mirror. And then, once we've finished Lower Decks, we shall be moving on to, we dropped a few hints about this. I think it's probably time to drop the bombshell.
Ulysses, Anne-Marie and Peter on the Borgcast, bringing your adventures to all.
Yes. This is a cartoon from the 1980s, which is freely available on YouTube, so you don't need to rush out and dust off old DVDs or anything. We'll be putting the link on the show notes for this if you want to start watching it. Similar in some ways to Lower Decks, in as much as it's a sci-fi animation that only lasts 20 minutes. But quite 1980s, I expect. It's been so long I've seen it, to be honest. I've only got vague memories. There are plenty of spaceships, though, so that kind of sold it to me.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, there is an annoying robot sidekick, because every 1980s kiddies cartoon, sci-fi cartoon had an annoying sidekick.
Yeah. So I talked about this last year, I think, on The Great Derelict with Andy and Zarish. And Andy, if you're listening, when you share this to The Great Derelict, could you put a link to that episode? That would be really helpful. But so I did, comparatively recently, I did a full rewatch. Although I started the rewatch, then had a break and then went back to it. So my memory of the more recent episodes is going to be much clearer than the memory of the first ones.
Right.
But I loved it. It was one of my favouriteest ever.
Anyways, you'll find that on the Borgcast Galactica feed. So we'll be dusting that off as well. Again, I'll put a link to that nearer the time, I guess. So yes, this feed, therefore, will be going back to being fortnightly and covering original series until such time as we have something new to cover.
Yep.
And then, yes, alternating with episodes of Ulysses 31, is it?
Yep.
Yes.
Well, Borgcast 31, as we call it.
Well, indeed, yes. Right, okay, well...
Can you tell I persuaded him?
Yeah, I've had my arm well and truly up my back. But anyway, it's got spaceships in it. I keep telling myself that. And they're only 20 minutes long, so, you know. And can't be any worse than bloody Galactica 1980,
oh, God,
can
no.
it?
No, can't. No.
Yay. Okay, well, until next time, take care, folks. Cheerio, bye.
Bye. The art for Borgcast Lower Decks is the fantastic work of Charlie Thorburn.
All music referenced is for illustrative purposes only, and no copyright infringement is intended.
Find our website at borgcast.libsyn.com.
We have a Facebook group which you're welcome to join.
You can find the Borgcast playouts on Spotify for your listening pleasure.
Visit our Tumblr site at borgcast.tumblr.com, where you'll find images accompanying the episodes discussed in this cast.
Send emails or MP3s to borgcast@gmail.com.
Or you can find us over on Mastodon. Our addresses are on the show notes for this podcast.
Kiss and tell, money talk, it never lies. Kiss and tell, give and take, eye for an eye. Fever, now. Dreamer, stealer, sound. One perfect face in a bright.
Shut it down!